Hello guys, Shoka the Fool here, back at it again with the 98th episode of the Braxcast, and this episode is going to be an exciting one. We've got some fulfillment that's been going on, but before I talk about the definitive item and the Dokumaan card binder showing those off, which is pretty exciting that those got fulfilled, do want to talk about some stuff that was going on with Eric's live streaming, saying he's making a deal to make the Rippaverse more accessible. Of course, like an NDA deal. I did show off the clip on live stream. He didn't really say anything more than that. Of course, there's this possibility that the Rippaverse gets in the comic book stores. It gets distributed digitally. I think it being distributed digitally is a very unlikely thing to happen. But definitely you could see the Rippaverse getting a big deal in getting to local comic book shops. I think that would be a pretty cool thing to see. But he was hyping it up, talking about it being a pretty big thing to make the Rippaverse more accessible. And of course, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm sure is going on. And that happens when you make this amount of money and it being described as a partnership. So really exciting stuff to see. But of course, primarily, Braxcast is here to talk about the comics and the things that actually get fulfilled rather than speculating wildly on the news, because it's very NDA. I don't like to. Last time I speculated, or basically one of the big times to speculate, I opened up the Braxcast with thinking that the Horseman was Sam. And that did not work out well. But we do have the definitive Isom Volume 1. This is the cover that features Isom very prominently. This is the one that I chose to get. This is, of course, collecting all 3 issues of Isom. It is the ill-advised arc. And the interesting thing with this, not only does it have this really nice opening splash page, which you will see in the original Isom, that the first one, the issue number 1 that you get. But it does have completely remastered art. I would say, well, actually, number 1's art was remastered with the Rippaverse Trinity. But this one not only has that remastered art, which Sebastian Chang was the colorist on for the 3rd issue, and the 1st issue when it was done in the Trinity. The 2nd issue has gotten that treatment as well, which I think is the most important thing to really mention here. So you see, this is some art from the 2nd issue, and I really like the 2nd issue of Isom number 2 from a coloring standpoint. Gabe did a very fantastic job of coloring all the really dark scenes. So he has a really great understanding of value, and Sebastian Chang, honestly, he does superb work. If anything, I'd say it looks a little bit better just flipping through it right now. But it does look fantastic. And of course, you've got this really nice scene where you got Blood Roof introduced. Absolutely love that. Fantastic stuff to see. Of course, you've got her Schwolls, I believe the fellow is her dragon, if I'm getting their names correctly. Fantastic stuff, but definitely love to see this one. I'd say if you want to read Isom, this is the definitive, pun intended, way to read this, because the art looks fantastic. It's just a great experience to flip through. Of course, when art like this is just blown up and super big, it looks really nice. Of course, it makes it a little bit less portable, a little bit harder to read in bed, but it does look fantastic, and it's really, really nice to flip through. And of course, you do have number 3 in all of its glory. Again, they didn't really do much in terms of remastering the art for that, basically, other than it being a little bit bigger, because it's bigger than the 3rd issue. Because that's just a standard 11 by 17, and this is definitely a little bit bigger than that. But since Sebastian Chang was a colorist on this, you didn't have to really do much in terms of retouching up the art. But with Sebastian Chang recoloring that 2nd issue, this does seem like you'll just have a consistent read-through from start to finish, and it will just look very much thematically the same. So like I said, if you haven't read Isom yet, this is probably the best way to do it. But we're going to move on to what is the really exciting stuff, and this is the Dokumaan card binder. And this thing is absolutely massive. If I can zoom out a little bit. You see my hand, I don't have a small hand at all, and I can put both of them. So this thing is freaking massive. When I went and picked up this package from the UPS store, I got in a big box. I was like, I just got in the binder and the book. Why is it so big? Now I understand why. This thing is absolutely huge. It is really high quality, of course. I believe I have the zipper right here. I do have it unzipped, but you can zip it up like that. And then you can unzip it all the way. So that way we can actually show the full extent of the art. If I can even, I think I'm zoomed out as much as I can, guys. So But this is fantastic art. Of course, Kane White did the art for this. I just love this art. It looks fantastic. You've got this really high quality stitching all around, so this will last for a long time to come. Of course, I don't advise having it splayed out like this, but that just is what it is. Just to show this all off to you guys. And then, of course, we're going to flip this open. And then, of course, we'll flip open the book, and you can see you've got the pages here. They don't have the cards in them yet. I will show that soon. Interior feels nice and soft. The only one criticism I'll have is that you won't be able to read the backs of these very easily. Basically, you'll have to take them out to read the back, which is the only unfortunate thing. So you either have them with the front showing off the character profile or the back showing off the lore. And the lore is, of course, quite important. But other than that, that's the only real thing. But like I said, I think having this binder without having any of the cards in it is a bit useless. So we're going to snap our fingers. And just like that, the Dokumaan archives have traveled from a different dimension into my binder, or I just spent a couple of minutes putting these all in from the various boxes that they come in to this binder here. And it is quite nice to have them all in the binder. Of course, this reminds you of collecting like Pokemon cards, that dinosaur cards, where you got like a binder like this. And the one thing that I'll say, while it's really nice to be able to flip through all these, and these are all in order, as you can see. So I did that pretty organized. So there are 52 cards in total. You can see it ends with Bong, and it begins all the way with Isom. You can't really read the back, so of course you flip over the one. So if you want to read the backs of a card, you got to go into basically pull the card out. It can be a little bit hard to do that. They're pretty easy to get in, but so you got to do that. You can read the back. I've read all of these cards, and I will continue to do so. So it's nice. It's nice to be able to like have them a little bit more easily accessible than keeping them in the boxes. This definitely will keep them safer than having them in the boxes. Don't have to worry about them getting scratched. You can still pretty much see the lenticular effect through this plastic sheathing. You can actually like fold these up, although I don't think there's much of a point in doing that. So just keeping it out like this, and this is like a thick binder. So this one binder is going to do you a lot of good in terms of like lasting a really long time with the Dokumaan sets, because we're just about, just a little over 3 years in, and we've gotten 52. So we've gotten basically at this page, and I mean, just look at the amount of pages that there are left. So this is probably going to be like a decade, even more so, of Dokumaan cards that you can fit in this binder. And like I said, it's a really high quality binder. I absolutely am in love with it. They knocked this one out of the park. You got that nice metal binding, basically what you would get with any binder you get when you were a kid in school, in terms of just how this is, as long as you don't mess with it too much. And I think, yeah, you can actually can pull that out and remove pages if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. It is definitely a really high quality binder. It looks absolutely fantastic. And while it is really, really big, it basically has to be because these are big cards. It's definitely probably, it is going to be the best way to keep a hold of your Dokumaan collection. Like I said, the only thing that really I dislike is that you can't read the backs while they're in the binder. So if they ever do another one of these, that's the only thing I'd say. Keep this basic design. It's absolutely fantastic. Of course, this art is limited, but I'm sure you can get Kanan to whip up another awesome thing for Dokumaan. I'm not going to unzip it and show off now. It's got the cards in it. I want to keep this safe and intact for as long as possible. But the version 2 of this, like I said, to have one where you can read what's on the back while they're in the binder, so you don't have to mess with the plastic sheathing because it's a bit thin. So if you're consistently removing them, I get a little bit worried about that lasting in the long term if you're taking these cards in and out, especially since the edges can be a little bit sharp and you don't want to pierce anything by like messing around with trying to get it out. Especially if your fingers are a little bit thicker like mine, you might have a little bit of trouble. But this is still a fantastic binder. I'm really glad they did this. This one was talked about for such a long time, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park, other than that like one little thing that I mentioned. But I am very happy with this. This is probably like a solid like 8 out of 10 in terms of like the functionality of this. And then it's like a 10 out of 10 in just the build quality and the design of this. And it is actually absolutely massive. I mean, just to put this into perspective, I mean, look at the freaking omnibus, and I can put it like its footprint is dwarfed by that. And then of course, like, I'm not sure if I can show off the thickness of it, but I mean, just look how thick it is in comparison. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but it is a really massive, massive book, or massive binder. So like when you get this, guys, if you still have this on the way, just be prepared. It's going to come in a big box like it did with me, especially if you order with the Isom box. It came in like one where like I wanted all stuff. It's just like a 26-inch long box. And I was like, why is it so big? This is why. Very well packaged as always. So it came in completely intact. Absolutely knockout job by the warehouse team as always. But I'm really rambling at this point. Definitely love this Dokumaan card binder. It's going to definitely stay as part of the collection. And as soon as I'm done reading the Dokumaan card sets while on episodes of Braxcast, they will live in here. Definitely going to keep this for years to come. This is like, I'd say heirloom might be a bit ridiculous, but it's like of that quality in my mind. Just like something you can really just pass on to people. Great thing to put on like a coffee table just to really interest people, and just a nice thing to have in your collection and to show off. But with how big it is, I'm going to have to figure out a place to put it without it getting scratched. But anyways, that's all I have for this episode of the Braxcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Joker is out.
Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.